Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fandomology, where fandoms collide. And we are back with the first of two beginner series that we are doing this week. And so, my guests tonight are Trevor and Dan, and we are going to be going into Castlevania. So, this has been one that has been pretty hyped up for a while. In fact, Angry Canadian earlier left a comment saying, I'll have to bookmark this for later. If you're going to talk about the Netflix show, don't have high expectations going into seasons 3, 4, and Nocturne, especially if you've played Castlevania 3 and Rondo. Also, hello in the chat to Chris, and hello to Michael. All right.
Yo.
So,
What's up, guys?
Castlevania. We already established this in the Metroid stream that we did the other day. There's this genre of games that, of course, are known as Metroidvanias that are notorious for their need for you to backtrack to certain areas of the map when you have certain abilities unlocked. We already covered Metroid, so now we're going to cover the other half of Castlevania, of that being Castlevania. So, as always, we're going to go ahead and ask the first question. And Trevor, you can go first on this one. What first got you into Castlevania?
Dan. Like,
Oh,
plain and simple, Dan.
okay.
Dan, correct me if I get any of this wrong. Like, don't even hesitate to cut me off. When Dan and I first met through our battle page on Facebook, Death Battle Plus Plus, and we became friends and started talking, we had a group chat with a number of people. And I know Dan was talking about Castlevania in that group chat. And I had known of its existence because of Smash, and I liked the way Simon Richter played, and I saw some of the spirits, and I actually saw Trevor Belmont's spirit, and I'm like, he looks dope. But then one day I saw the Castlevania Anniversary Collection on the Switch on sale, and I bought it, and Dan was the first one I told. And then it was the September Direct in 21, I believe, when they put the Castlevania Advance Collection on the Switch, and I'm like, I must have it. So
Okay.
I got that, played the hell out of it, and then I've only beaten a handful of Castlevania games because either I get sidetracked or I get stuck in this exploration area that I can't figure out. But then I got other games like the Requiem Collection, which has Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, and then I got the PS2 games of Castlevania and the PS3 ones. And I've been a Castlevania fan for, I want to say, going on 4 years now, something like that. And
Okay.
Dan's the reason. So much love to that dude up there.
Not
Okay.
a problem.
And I got a real quick shout out to you, Trevor, that initially this was going to be just me and you, but you were like, no, we got to get Dan in on this because you said that he was more of an expert than you are.
I will say, I've got a good bit of Castlevania knowledge, but Dan's dwarfs mine.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Real
No
quick,
problem.
by the way, we had Kobe come in the chat and he says he likes my shirt. Thank you. So, Dan, how did you first get into Castlevania?
Let's see. It was roughly around 89 or 90. I was like 6 or 7 years old then. And the series was actually still really fresh with the first two games, I believe. Because the first one I played was Simon's Quest.
Okay.
Which actually is the first Castlevania that incorporated RPG elements and the backtracking. A lot of people confuse it with Symphony of the Night being the first Metroidvania. It was really Simon's Quest. But I like the whole like scary monsters vibe. And I was always like, oh, challenge. And my brother played it a lot, so of course, being the younger brother, I wanted to get into it too.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, you get to go and kill Dracula? I mean, I was a little kid, so. Yeah, I've been playing it ever since.
All right. So Castlevania, now that we've gotten your backstory with it, Castlevania basically is about killing Dracula. So beyond that though, what is, and Trevor, of course, we've gone into a little bit of the story with this before, and I'll go ahead and bring up the first of the bullet points. What overall is the story of Castlevania? And real quick, before you guys answer that, I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip. So go ahead.
Which of us do you want to take it
Uh,
first?
Anyone up for grabs.
Yeah, before it goes any further than that, it's kind of hard to spoil a game that's been around for like 20 years, 20 plus years. But
True.
yeah, spoiler alert. I mean, this series has been out for almost 40 years.
But so if you haven't played it by now, it's kind of on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trevor, you go for bad, my man.
All right. So the storyline varies game by game, but generally, it's one of the Belmonts or someone associated with them tasked with killing Dracula.
Okay.
So I'm gonna kind of spoil Castlevania 1 and then Castlevania 2. In Castlevania 1, Simon kills Dracula, but in Castlevania 2, finds out he did not do it the right way, so he had to go collect all of the parts of Dracula and reassemble him just to kill him again. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is so, wow. That is so, I don't even know what word to describe that. Petty?
I mean,
like his orders, like, you did it wrong. Now you got to undo, you got to bring him back and kill him again. Wow.
Yeah. And
that's
then
actually probably one of the most killer things that, I mean, no pun intended, that a Belmont has ever done is like, not only am I going to kill you twice, kill you once, I'm going to put you back together and kill you again and do it all by myself.
Now, I will say, one game that I really wanted to touch base on, for this specifically, is a game that took a very different twist story-wise, which was Curse of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually features one of Dracula's previous servants, Hector, who wants to kill both the guy he worked with and Dracula because I believe they killed his wife or something like that. It's been a little while since I played the game, so I've probably forgotten. But so it's not even always the Belmonts. It is sometimes Dracula's own previous allies wanting to kill him for one reason or another.
Interesting. Okay, so my follow-up question is this. With the exception of that one guy, why the Belmonts? Of any family that could do it?
I have the knowledge to explain it, but I'm going to let Dan do that because he would be a little better at it. I would be fumbling all over myself.
Yeah, I got this covered. So it started with an order of knights in Europe. I can't remember which country it was. It was France or Romania, one of the two. That I can't remember the specifics of, but there were two specific knights among this order, one by the name of Leon Belmont and one by the name of Matthias Cronquist.
Okay.
And Matthias, he was like the strategist, and Leon, he was kind of the warrior. Well, after their war had ended and they had celebrated, well, Matthias didn't have exactly a happy ending. He fell terribly ill. His wife got kidnapped and killed. So behind the scenes, and this is Lament of Innocence, mind you, the exact game installment. So Leon's girlfriend ends up getting captured, and so he has to go to this castle. He meets Ronaldo Gandolfi, who creates the Whip of Alchemy, eventually becomes vampire killer, in search of his girlfriend and to basically wax whoever kidnapped her and to try to save her. Well, there was a vampire living in that castle by the name of Walter Bernard. And he made it to Walter Bernard through the castle eventually and took him down. Then it turns out that the entire time Matthias was behind it to get the Crimson Gem in order to make himself into a vampire so he could live eternally, basically defy God by becoming immortal.
Right.
And thus the transition from Matthias to Dracula, and Leon pledged, because they were best friends, and Leon pledged that after defeating him, from this moment on, my family and my kinsmen will hunt you. That's the whole premise of the story.
Okay. So let me ask you this one then. Where does... So going off of a little bit of what we talked about with Trevor earlier, when we were... all the times we talked about it at work, where does the church come in?
I think that was more of an anime thing. And Dan, would you say that was more so the anime, or does the church play a role in the games?
Oh, the church definitely plays a role in the games.
Because I must have missed that part, because... but then again, I haven't played a whole lot of Castlevania lately. I've been playing other things.
Well, the anime, of course, being its own kind of continuity, I'm not entirely sure if it's retconning all the games, but I know it's its own continuity. It basically brought to life what the games were trying to tell the story of. Because the Belmonts, like I said, they were knights. Leon was a knight. He was basically a Templar. And he was connected with the church. But the whole reason that Dracula has this vendetta against humanity is because, well, he eventually married Lisa, which was a human.
Right.
And she was basically burned at the stake for being a quote-unquote witch accusation.
Which I know that was definitely something that me and Trevor had brought up at work, the whole thing of Dracula didn't like that, and so he gave them a year to repent. Otherwise, he was just going to completely wipe them out, right?
Yeah, the anime just made it a more detailed story version, but it's in the lore.
Okay. So, is there any... So, that's basically the story of like the whole series, right? Or is there variations from game to game?
There's variations from game to game, and one that I actually did want to shed light on, huge spoiler warnings, by the way, for my favorite Castlevania game, Aria of Sorrow. Hold on a second. Yes. Okay.
Everything all right, Trevor? I'm sorry, Trevor, but I had to mute you for a second. Dan,
Yes.
what Trevor was trying to explain about how there's variations from game to game. Would you mind to take that?
Well, every Belmont has, I mean, on top of it being they're basically clan pledge to hunt the knight, not necessarily just Dracula himself, but the knight. But I mean, there are other variations like you said, Curse of Darkness, where Hector was a devil forge master, and he had kind of the same thing happen to him that Leon did. It was really similar. But he ended up actually betraying Dracula during the Dracula's Curse games.
Okay, real quick, Dan, it sounds like someone's dropping chains on your end. Is everything okay over there?
Really? Oh.
Yeah, like when you were talking, I was hearing like a little chain, like a necklace just being dropped like that.
Oh, okay. Well, I got that fixed.
Okay.
My bad.
Am I legal again?
Yes, you are.
When I stepped away, I muted myself and I tapped the camera thing, but I guess it didn't turn my camera off. Mom, had to come in to ask me something or other. But
I
anyway,
understand. So
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was basically just the question I had asked you, I basically turned to Dan for the answer. So your own
Yeah.
take though on the variations between the games.
My personal favorite variation, which is in my favorite Castlevania game, Aria of Sorrow, is the protagonist, unknowingly for the majority of the game, was actually the reincarnation of Dracula.
Really?
And he had to fight against that because he did not want to give in to his Dracula tendencies.
Interesting.
And that was a huge plot twist that I did not see coming at all. And I was just like, holy damn, like I'm typically really good at figuring out plot twists before they even happen because I can pick up on the signs, but that was one I did not see coming.
So like how does that work? His like Dracula's heart inside of him or something?
I'm not 100% sure how Soma Cruz wound up being Dracula's reincarnation. I seriously do not know how that came to be. Okay. Bear in mind, I have not played its sequel, Dawn of Sorrow. I have that game, I just haven't played it.
I gotcha.
Well, I can explain that. Basically, that Dracula, his quote-unquote soul or spirit or energy, isn't necessarily contained to a body. Like his body can be destroyed, but his essence, for lack of a better term, still lives on. Like Curse of Darkness, another major spoiler. He ends up coming back through another vessel. I want to say, I don't want to spoil too much in case someone actually plays the game. Which is advised. It's one of my favorite Castlevanias.
In my personal opinion, I think Curse of Darkness is the best 3D game, with Lament of Innocence being a very close number 2. In my humble opinion.
I mean, I would definitely agree. I kind of place them equal. One of the biggest variations was Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
Because you actually played Alucard, you didn't play Belmont. Initially you did, but you ended up being Alucard, which was one of the biggest boom games in the Castlevania franchise.
I'm pretty sure to this day, Symphony of the Night is still considered the greatest Castlevania game, and ironically, it doesn't even star a Belmont.
Depends on who you ask.
All right.
This is true.
So, talking about the Belmonts, let's now go into who they are. We're gonna skip. I'm gonna go a little bit out of order here, and let's go ahead and talk about the important characters. So while you guys were talking about that, I went ahead and imported some pictures. I got 5 different pictures to show of some of the characters. So let's start here with Trevor Belmont. So what's his story?
Trevor, I think it's accurate and probably best if you do it.
Yes. So Trevor Belmont was the star of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. And in the anime, he is of course from the Belmont clan, and he's a drunk, which I think that's one of my favorite qualities about him. But so he went into the town that was being invaded by all of those monsters that Dracula was sending on them. And he and Sypha went to awake Alucard, and I think that happened after they fought off the monsters, though. It's been a while since I've seen the anime. But Trevor's a super cool character. He's got funny moments, such as when he tried to kick Alucard in the nuts in their fight. And all Alucard could do was just deadpan stare at him and say, "Please, this isn't a bar fight. Have some class." Yeah, I'm not kidding. Dan can vouch.
What was he expecting?
But
well, It was all a joke based on Trevor himself getting kicked in the nuts in a bar fight.
Yes.
Wow.
But Trevor, he is. It's tough for me to explain, but he is a very, even though he's a drunk who seems to not give a shit, he does really care. And he not only drives off Dracula, but I don't want to spoil the end of it. But let's just say there is a huge showdown of epic proportions at the end of the anime that I couldn't do justice with words, and I'm not going to spoil it in case anyone actually wants to go watch it.
Okay.
I
Then
know
let's
there
go.
were I know there were some holes in that description, but I don't want to spoil too much, and it's been a while since I've seen the anime.
No, that's perfectly understandable. Chris in the chat says, Trevor Belmont's voice was provided in the anime by Richard Armitage. Wow. So for those that don't know, Richard Armitage is also the actor that played Thorin Oakenshield from the Hobbit movies.
Another notable voice actor was Dracula, who was voiced by Graham McTavish.
Who's that again?
Graham McTavish?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was what was his name? And he was in the Witcher series. I can't remember what his name is. Trying to think of what else he is been in.
But Dan, did I leave anything important out in Trevor's description?
Not necessarily, because he didn't actually intend to seek out Dracula, but to begin with.
Yeah, he just kind of got caught up in it.
Okay. So the next character I'm going to bring in is, and Trevor, you're going to want to go ahead and get your amiibos ready. Let's talk about Simon Belmont. So, and of course, I lifted this picture from the Smash Brothers wiki. So, Trevor, go ahead and show the amiibo. What is his story?
Dan, you can take this one.
Well, a lot of it was already covered. And depending on what continuity you're looking at, Simon would either be Trevor's son or grandson or great grandson. And he basically did the same, but I mean, Trevor actually basically said it earlier. It's like, well, their job is to hunt the night.
Right.
But he was the first known Belmont with magical powers due to Sypha's blood.
Okay. So, quick side question with that one. How does magic work in this universe?
It does vary on what kind it is. Sypha's a speaker magician. Or was. She was more based on spirit. There's holy magic, dark magic. I mean, it's pretty typical magic. It's not necessarily anything special, I guess you could say. I mean, it's magic.
Okay. So, real quick, do me a favor, Trevor. Bring the amiibo up again.
Yes, sir.
So, that weapon that he's using, the chain with the spiky ball on it that looks like it's on a sword hilt, what is that and why? Because I'm looking at all of the pictures of the Belmonts that I've got here, from Trevor to Simon to Richter. Why do they prefer whip-like weapons?
Because this whip is a legendary weapon called the Vampire Killer.
Really?
So it's passed down through their family. It also goes by the Morning Star. But it's passed down through their family, and it's enchanted with magical power that is... Dan's better at explaining this, but I believe it's enchanted with magical power that allows the Belmonts and the Belmonts only to wield it at its full capability. I believe. Dan, if I'm wrong, correct me.
So, to backpedal back to Lament of Innocence, I mentioned Ronaldo Gandolfi. He's the one that made the whip.
Okay.
It is a magically infused whip to fight off darkness, and the Belmonts aren't always the ones to wield it throughout the series, but for the most part, they're the only ones that can.
Okay. And what is special about it that allows it to be a vampire killer?
It's not just a vampire killer, it's a killer of the night. It dispels evil, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Like it's kind of like a, I don't know, if you play D&D, it's like a holy avenger. It deals
Okay.
extra damage to them. It's destroyed.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's how when Ronaldo Gandolfi made it, he infused it to make it have that magical property to do that extra damage and to be able to wipe out the undead, wipe out darkness.
Okay.
It's like the Belmont's Master Sword as well.
Right. Also, Virginia's asking me in Facebook Messenger, does Dracula have a lead allergy?
We can. Well, I'm
Reference
sure.
to
I'm sure if he does. I'm sure if he doesn't, Nate will find out.
that is true. All right. So, getting back though to Simon, is there anything else we didn't cover with him that's important?
Nothing too huge.
He's the grandfather of Juiced Belmont. Just a fun fact.
Okay.
Yeah, the family tree is, big surprise, convoluted.
I'm sure.
And there's
I've
a
looked-
couple different timelines to go by.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've looked up the Belmont family tree, and trust me when I say it's not easy to understand.
Oh, I can imagine that for sure. All right, so with that, let's move on now to Richter Belmont. And Trevor, if you've got his amiibo, go ahead and bring him up here. So, what is Richter's story? Like, is he the kid of Simon or the kid of Trevor or what?
I think that also varies depending on the timeline, and I'm not sure
does.
exactly. And I'm not exactly sure who his dad is.
Okay.
I've asked Dan before, and I don't even know if Dan's given me a straight answer on that.
Hang on just a second. Well,
oh, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Also,
I
hello
believe-
in the chat to Phil.
I believe he's, well, in the anime, it's quite the time difference. I think he's like great grandson of Trevor.
Okay. But
Okay.
Richter was. Go ahead, Paul.
Michael, well, first off, hello in the chat to Phil, who's saying nerds. I know, Phil. Michael says, not related to the discussion. Just want to let you know I'm making a draft for a scripted video. PJ, I sent you a copy. Where'd you send it to? I haven't seen it. Is it in my email?
Now, Richter is the star of the game Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which is potentially my greatest achievement in gaming. I managed to beat that game after 200 and some odd deaths, but I did it.
Wow.
Let me tell you, hard as hell. But and Richter also got either brainwashed or possessed by Dracula in Symphony of the Night, and Alucard has to bring him back to his senses. Oh yeah, spoiler. So yeah, and Richter is the star of the Castlevania Nocturne anime as well.
Okay.
Yeah, in the games, Richter is the grandson of Trevor and the son of Juiced.
Gotcha.
Okay.
By the way, Michael, I'm looking through my email for what you said. I don't see it.
Why is there a thumbs down on my screen?
A thumbs down?
Yeah, there was like a thumbs down on my screen, and I don't understand why. Oh. Is it because I did a motion?
That is weird. Do a thumbs up. See if it happens.
Huh.
What in the world?
Interesting.
Does it work for me? No? Shoot.
What happens if I do this? Oh, well, I got part of it.
What the heck is this? Trevor, you're
No,
on your phone, right?
Yes.
And you have an iPhone, right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Virginia, next time I'm on call with you on my phone, I'm going to turn my camera on and see if I can do this stuff too.
I'm sorry, I did not mean for that to happen. I just thought if I did 2 thumbs up, it would be like just 2 thumbs up pops up.
Hey, we learned something new.
Chris is saying Trevor discovered a glitch in the StreamYard matrix. Oh my god. Wow. That is insane.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand, though. Woo! Alright, so yeah.
Well, hey, at least it auto-corrected your emojis.
Right?
Yeah, that is true.
So that's about all I've got to say about Richter, unless Dan has more to add.
Virginia wants to know what happens for 2 thumbs down.
Let's find out.
Oh no! It's raining!
Oh my gosh, that's perfect.
Wow!
That makes sense, though.
Okay. All
right. Let's get back on track now. I think we covered. Okay, so let me ask you this one before we move on from the Belmonts. What's like the major differences between the 3 Belmonts as far as like personality, motivation, what they're good at, what they're not good at, etc.?
Motivation, personality-wise, Trevor is probably the biggest asshole. Like, most Belmonts are. They're kind of gruff and rigid around the edges. I mean, due to a constant life of practically just fighting undead and monsters of the night. Like, they live that life. So, yeah, I mean, I would understand being a little rough around the edges, starting with Leon. Richter, he adds magical abilities like with his sub-weapons. So he's like Trevor, he's restricted to the whip. He doesn't have that added bonus unless you're playing Curse of Darkness, in which he kind of kicks your ass. Anyways.
Okay.
He can kind of soup up his sub-weapons and do like a super move with them, so he infuses magical abilities into those sub-weapons.
Yeah, he owned me in that game quite a few times.
Oh, Trevor? Yeah. He doesn't necessarily... He just soups up versions of that weapon, whereas Richter kind of uses his magic to make them more powerful.
Yeah. One thing to note about Richter, he's probably the most different personality-wise, because Richter is like, he's the least asshole-ish, and he's actually pretty charming. I mean, when he rescues the four ladies in Rondo of Blood, I mean, the cutscenes even show that he's got an element of charm to himself.
Okay. So, with that then, let's move on now to this guy. The main antagonist himself, Dracula. Now, obviously, Dracula existed already well before these games. He was, of course, the creation of the author Bram Stoker. But how does this Dracula differ from the classic Dracula from Bram Stoker?
First thing that pops out is difference in power. Castlevania Dracula is far superior in power as opposed to the traditional Dracula. That's one of the first thing that pops to my mind. as he has his demonic transformations, which also vary from game to game, are much more fearsome, to say the least. I would also go with backstory.
Okay, because if I'm not because obviously the real Dracula from Bram Stoker was inspired by the real life person Vlad the Impaler. So, how do you take that and make it what it is in Castlevania?
I know Dracula never liked humans from the get-go. And I mean, he was a known human killer. And then Lisa comes into his life and she's just like, "Yeah, I'm not scared of you. Leave me alone." And he actually fell for her, like, and he fell hard.
Interesting.
And you know what happens when a daddy vampire and a mommy human love each other? They get together,
And we get
we're
this
gonna.
guy.
I was actually gonna say we get who we're gonna talk about next.
Mm-hmm.
But and then she got burned at the stake, like Dan said earlier, because she was just good at medicine, and the church didn't like that and took that as witchcraft. And then Dracula's just like, you know what? All humans must die.
Time out. What reason would the church have not to like that? The fact that she was good at medicine.
Because they took her methods as witchcraft.
Is it just the fact that she was better at healing than they were?
Well, I'll pick this up.
All right.
It was more of a scientific and alchemical method as opposed to a religious one.
Mm-hmm.
And bear in mind, back in that time period, science and religion did not get along.
Right. Real quick, I want to cut in and say, Chris says in the chat, you'll probably recall the demonic bat-like form he changes to in Smash if you do the classic mode routes for Simon, Richter, and Luigi.
That kind of makes sense, actually.
Why Luigi?
Luigi's Mansion.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I mean, that does make sense. Yeah, that's the form from Symphony of the Night during the first chapter.
Yeah. And the second... And you know that, like, the second form Beast Dracula that you fight in Smash?
Mm-hmm.
That is his final form in Rondo of Blood.
Okay.
Correct.
So, why... So what is Dracula's ultimate motivation? We kind of talked about it a little bit with wanting to make the church pay for killing his wife, but what does Dracula have against the Belmonts, other than the fact that they're trying to kill him?
The fact that they're humans. Oh, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Well, he doesn't necessarily have a vendetta against the Belmonts. If anything, his vendetta against them is he's tired of having to deal with them and suffering losses to them, because he's taken quite a few L's to Belmonts.
Gotcha. So it's a matter of pride.
Yeah, it's a big matter of pride, and over time, it kind of tends to wear on you, and you kind of get tired of dealing with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's mainly his whole vendetta against them, because he knows who they are. He's even mentioned it in other games. He's like, basically like, oh man, another Belmont? Oh, man, when do you guys stop?
Mm-hmm.
Basically. Other than that, it's not too complicated of a story in that respect.
Absolutely. So now before we get into Alucard, let's talk about this one. And this kind of is lore, but it's also kind of gameplay. In this universe, how do you kill a vampire?
So, are we talking game or are we talking anime?
Both.
Alright, so an anime wouldn't stake through the heart, or get hit in the right place by a whip or the Morning Star.
Okay.
In the games, typically, I remember in Rondo of Blood, and I think in don't remember right off, but I know Dracula, at least first form, only takes damage on his head, so much the same as his fight and smash.
Got
And
it.
he typically has another form after that where you can hit him anywhere and it's fine. So Dan, feel free to follow
up. Magical weapons.
Yep.
Which essentially is what the Morning Star is, but it's not limited to that. It's just much better than most magical weapons. There's fire. Fire will kill them. It has to be a lot of it, depending on the vampire, and that's another huge factor is the vampire in question, because there's a fair number of vampires that are well known in the series, so you have to take their power and who they are into consideration. If it's the top 4, they're not going to be easy to kill, which would be Dracula, Elizabeth Bartley, Carmilla, and Aurochs. Yeah. Water will kill them, depending. Salt can damage them, but for the most part, it's magical weapons.
Okay.
Or holy water.
Real quick, Al, I heard you list off those names of the other vampires. Should I have gotten pictures for them too?
I mean, you could. They're usually in there, but yeah.
Do me a favor real quick and like in the private chat or in Facebook Messenger, send me a list of those and I'll pull pictures for them.
Okay.
I will say out of those 3, the only one I have any knowledge on is Carmilla.
Okay. I'll start with her. So let me get her picture real quick.
So Dan, I hate to do this to you, but you're on your own for the other 2.
Oh, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so I'm not gonna worry about importing them into StreamYard this time. I'm just gonna share the tab. So we'll start here. So that's Carmilla. So what's her story?
So I'm going off anime for this one because I haven't played the game she's involved with.
Mm-hmm.
In the anime, she originally served under Dracula, but after he fell, she had her own plans. So she enslaved Hector to basically start forging demons for her to use. She also has 3 sisters that she worked alongside of, those being Strega, Strega, Lenore, and I can't remember the last one's name.
Okay.
The last one is just super forgettable to me. But anyway, and I gotta say, her and Isaac had an awesome fight. Like, that was the fight I never knew I needed, but when it happened, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Okay.
But I would say, like, after Dracula died in season 2 of the anime, she picked up the main villain role. Well, maybe not main villain, but important villain, we'll say that.
So put it this way, if Dracula was like Megatron, Carmilla was Starscream.
That's a good way to put it.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, by the way. So let me get the next one. So let's talk now about this person. Let me get the picture pulled up. Who is this?
That is Strega.
Okay.
And Dan, did you want to take this one, or did you want me to?
No, go for it, man.
She's kind of like the brute of the 4 that I mentioned. She's very smart. And she has she has a set of daylight armor. When she wears it, she looks like a hulking monster, and she has one of the most badass genocide scenes in anime I have ever seen.
I have a picture, by the way, of her in her, or at least a fan art of her in her day armor. Let me pull that real quick.
Daybreaker.
Yep.
And yeah, that is no joke.
Paul, do
Wow.
yourself a favor. After this stream, go watch her genocide scene. You will not regret it.
It's comparable to Guts and Berserk.
I have not seen Berserk, so I'm okay. I don't like seeing a lot of blood and guts. Is it gonna make me sick?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
So maybe don't do it then.
Yeah. Okay, so where does she rank on the totem of all this?
I mean, she's powerful, but she's not. I'll let Dan handle this one.
She is one of the 3 subordinates to Carmilla's plan.
Okay.
She would be technically like a B rank, for lack of a. I mean, in terms of a scale, I would probably put her at a B rank in terms of. I'm not going to necessarily say power, but I'm pretty sure Carmilla would beat her.
Okay. So how ultimately is she defeated?
No, I don't think they really ever touched on that. I actually don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it too.
At the end of the anime, Strega and her wife are riding off as the castle explodes. So they just think that Lenore's dead, and they take that Carmilla's dead too.
Okay, so speaking of Lenore, let's go there next. So what's her deal?
Probably, aside from Alucard, probably one of the only good vampires in the series.
Okay.
I'm probably taking over way too much. Dan, you handle this.
No,
one.
you're fine.
I don't care either way, guys. It's up for grabs.
Doesn't matter to me. Lenore, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say she's a good vampire, but I wouldn't necessarily say she's a bad one either.
So actually, real quick question. I just realized I should have asked this. So the 3 that we're talking about, Striga, Morana, and Lenore, are they exclusive to the anime, or do they make appearances in the games too?
As far as I know, they are exclusive to the anime.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen them in any of the games.
Okay, fair enough.
So when I say Lenore's a good vampire, I mean she's got probably the most humanity of them all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because Strega, I mean, she's awesome, but at the end of the day, killing's what she does best. Lenore's Lenore is just kind of the negotiator.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, do you think I put that correctly?
Yeah, she's more tactful.
Okay, so what role does Lenore serve?
Lenore basically kind of saves Hector from being essentially starved to death by Carmilla by switching that. She's the mediator of the group. Out of the 4, each one of them kind of serves a role, whereas like Carmilla is the deviser. She comes up with all the plans. Lenore's the mediator.
Okay.
Striga, of course, is the brute. Mariana, I forgot what she does exactly.
And real quick, since you brought him up, I also pulled a picture for Hector.
Yeah, that's the OG Hector.
Okay, I'm laughing at something Virginia had said in the chat in DMs to me. She says, "Lenore The whore likes to snore while eating s'mores. except her autocorrect got in the way and misspelled whore to hole.
Virginia,
Yeah.
you're getting infected with the Strassner curse of autocorrect.
Exactly. Or in my case, text to speech. All right, so the last character I'm going to bring up, of course, Mirana. What's her deal?
Honestly, in my opinion, she is the most forgettable vampire in the anime.
I'm not going to deny that.
Okay.
I mean, I like her, but she just didn't stick with me.
Gotcha. So what purpose does you said that she's the negotiator. What does that look like?
Again, she just didn't really stick with me. Literally, the only thing I remember about her is that her and Strega are wife and wife. That's all I remember.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
That's literally the only thing about Mirana that I remember. That and Strega put her in a coffin when she went out to fight in the day.
Okay.
Well, she's like the strategist, whereas like Carmilla does devise plans. Mirana's a strategist and economist, I guess you could say.
Okay. So shifting now from the characters, let's talk about the gameplay. And if I'm not mistaken, the gameplay is what this series is most known for. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. Paul, real quick, we forgot to touch base on Alucard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Good catch. So I'll bring his picture up here. So what's his deal?
Son of Dracula and Lisa, he's a Dhampir, half man, half vampire.
Okay, so what does that mean?
He gets the best of both worlds. He gets all the vampire abilities minus weakness to the sun.
Okay.
And he's my second favorite character in the series. He is a total badass, and he has some of the most amazing moments in the anime. Dan, I'm going to let you take it from here because I know you've got things about him you'd undoubtedly want to say.
Yeah, to touch more on the Dhampir thing, he's basically a human and a vampire, but he's also neither at the same time.
Okay.
He, like when Lisa and Dracula had him, they essentially created a new race.
Gotcha. Chris, real quick, says in the chat here, he's like Blade from Marvel. All the vampire abilities, but can actually survive in daytime.
Correct. And despite being half human and not being a pureblood, having Dracula's blood in his veins makes him the second most powerful character in the series. Aside from maybe Death.
Wait, no, Death is an actual entity in this?
Yes.
Wow.
Death is subservient to Dracula because Dracula transcends death.
Okay.
I mean, when Luigi got murdered in Simon and Richter's reveal trailer, didn't you ever wonder why Death did that?
I never saw Simon and Richter's reveal trailer.
You're going to make me faint on stream again.
Yes, I am. And you want to know how I'm going to do it?
Paul, no, I swear.
Delicious Whoopers, the cutest of all.
Also, because I accidentally played it.
Dummy, yeah.
Oh, by the way, on that note, those of you guys that are professional wrestling fans that want to see fantasy matches written, go check out Professional Pro Wrestling Plus on Facebook. It's something that me and Dan and some other members of TDK are working on.
Yeah, it's just getting its start, but it'll. I need to get back to other pages as well. But aside from that, topic.
And in the anime, I mean, the huge spoilers. You've been warned. In the anime, the final battle that I told you about was Trevor versus Death.
Oh, wow. And what ended up happening?
Watch it and find out.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so now we'll finally get into talking about the gameplay. So we already established that Castlevania is the other half of the Metroidvania, where you have to occasionally backtrack once you get certain abilities unlocked. So what part of the Metroidvania does Castlevania bring to the table?
I don't think it's a specific part. I think it's just both Metroid and Castlevania were doing a similar deal. And that's why they mesh together into the genre name. Because
Yeah.
both
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
They have similar platforming and action. Whereas the combat for Castlevania, despite them using whips, to me, it's a little bit more up close and a little bit more nail biting. Because in Metroid, you're spending the majority of your time at a ranged distance, if that makes any sense. I mean, yeah, you got your sub weapons, but for the most part, you kind of got to be up on them too. So a lot of it has to do with the platforming.
Okay, so real quick, just completely random question that just hit me. Would you say that Legend of Zelda 2 Adventure of Link counts as a Metroidvania?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'll say so.
Okay. I've never played that game. I want to at some point. Maybe I'll stream it. I've heard it's the hardest Zelda game ever.
It is.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
almost beat it, but Dark Link kept wrecking me, and I refused to use the cheese method of go to a corner and just spam attack. I did not want to do the cheese method to win. And when Dark Link was owning me that hard, I was just like, you know what? F this. I'm done.
I was so young that when it came out, that I remember watching my brother beat it, but I don't think I ever did.
I gotcha. Okay, so the gameplay, it's of course a hack. So basically it's a basic hack and slash is what the fighting is, correct? Except you're whipping the Morning Star out at of course your targets. What
Correct.
sort of like puzzle solving and exploration is there?
Exploration didn't really hit too far in. Well, Simon's Quest did it because it had a night and day cycle, and it was a rather large map. It was technically one of the first open world games.
Right. And real quick, hello in the chat to Matt Cave saying Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link is my favorite Zelda game.
There you go.
Yeah, I admire that. Actually, it was a really tough game.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing it when I was a kid. I don't remember beating it though.
So let's see, what else is there to talk about with the gameplay?
I will say puzzle solving varies game by game. I think the puzzle solving is kind of limited to coming back later with an ability that will allow you to access the area.
Okay. Matt Cave also says original Castlevania was pretty much straightforward, not much exploration, but really cool level designs. So,
Oh yeah.
Having said that, then let me ask y'all this: of all of the Castlevania games, which real quick, how many are there total?
33.
Oh gosh.
There's what?
33.
There's 33 Castlevania games?
Yeah, it's in ballpark. It's in that ballpark.
What?
Yeah.
I knew it.
Oh my goodness.
I knew there was at least between 25 and 30, but I didn't know it was 33.
Okay. So follow-up question then. Are they all like core games, or are some of them like spin-offs that you could skip and not miss anything?
A lot of them have either been retconned or weren't canon to begin with.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
So,
then you have the Castlevania fighting game, Castlevania Judgment, which a lot of people, in the words of The Rock, think it's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard of.
okay. So let's separate the wheat from the chaff here. What are the Castlevania games that are actually important?
There is Lament of Innocence,
Okay.
Dracula's Curse,
Mm-hmm.
Castlevania 1 and 2.
And these are in chronological order, right?
I'm doing my best, so let me.
Okay.
Lament of Innocence,
Mhm.
Dracula's Curse, Curse of Darkness, Castlevania 1, then Simon's Quest. Super Castlevania 4 is just a remake of 1.
Okay.
Was it a remake of 1? Yeah, it was a remake of 1. Then what came next? I believe Harmony of Dissonance was. Yeah, because that was juiced.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of them that are, and then there's Rondo of Blood, Symphony of the Night.
Circle of the Moon.
Yeah, those are all in the same universe too.
Okay. Matt Cave is saying Castlevania 1, 3, and 4 and Symphony of the Night are must plays, in my opinion. Rondo of Blood is great too. Okay. So the question that I was really wanting to ask that kind of was in prep for this is, of all of the Castlevania games, both the important ones and the unimportant, which one would you say has the best gameplay?
I think Dan and I may agree on this one.
See, now me, I have to kind of separate them because there's kind of like another genre that I like to call Classicvania, and it's the classic Castlevania, and then there's Metroidvanias, Castlevanias, if that makes any sense. Like Curse of Darkness, Lament of Innocence, Symphony of the Night. Those would be them. Classicvania is, for me, is Dracula 3, Dracula's Curse.
Yeah.
Metroidvania style, and I really hate to not say Symphony of the Night, but I actually preferred Curse of Darkness.
Matt Cave says Symphony of the Night might be the best if you like Metroidvanias.
So
I'm not going to say that that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to say that that's wrong.
Now, I'm going to actually divide mine between 2D and 3D. For 2D, for me, it is a tie. It's a tie between Symphony of the Night and Aria of Sorrow.
Okay.
Because they are my two favorite Castlevania games.
Okay.
And Aria of Sorrow is just hair's width above Symphony to me.
Gotcha.
However, my favorite 3D Castlevania is Curse of Darkness. The story, the combat, it's perfect. Yeah, the exploration does feel a little bit empty sometimes, but I mean, the game's not about exploration anyway. You're killing shit.
No, right. To touch on the gameplay aspect of Castlevania, it's more about platforming. Like, if you're playing a Castlevania game and you don't die from falling at least once, you're not playing Castlevania. I'm going to call you a liar. Because, I mean, those jumps come down to minor misses. You make one mistake, boop, do. Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's the challenge there.
I remember when I was first playing Castlevania, when I got the Anniversary Collection. When I told Dan I was dying a lot, he was like, let me guess, falling off ledges? Yep.
Was I right?
You were, yes, you hit it right on the head.
So, I had a question, but I wanted to ask that I forgot to ask. Matt Cave says, if you want a completely different style and a reimagining, Castlevania Lords of Shadow is fun. Plays more like the original God of War games. Okay. I remember what the question was I wanted to ask. Of all the games, where would you recommend someone start?
Lament of Innocence.
I'm gonna have to
Okay.
agree.
Start at the beginning of the story.
No,
Okay.
and I would say Lament of Innocence is a good starting point. But I will say, you could pick up pretty much any of the games and understand what's going on. You may not understand like the whole series lore, but at least in that game, you'll understand what's going on.
Okay. And then the last thing that we want to talk, and then the last thing we're going to talk about for the night is, of course, the anime. Now, we've already touched on it a little bit. We talked about some of the anime specific characters, but just looking at it as a whole, would you guys recommend it?
Oh, absolutely. It's perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
I know what you're referencing there.
You were saying, anyway, I know Dan's got plenty to say on this.
I know it got a lot of hate, but I mean the first series didn't really get a whole lot of hate as far as what I've seen, but I loved it. I know Nocturne got a lot of hate, but a lot of people also don't understand. This is like Richter before Rondo of Blood, before he became that badass. I liked it very much, and I'm actually looking forward to the new seasons because, you know, my opinion, you gotta keep an open mind about it. It's not the same continuity that the games are. It's like another universe, like Matt Cave had pointed out, the Lords of Shadow, different continuity. Gotta keep them an open mind about it. I don't think they're doing bad with it. They're starting with a fresh Richter who's eventually learning his powers in Nocturne. I would totally advise it. It'll teach you a lot about the series, and they basically gave a detailed version of the story, but I mean it's kind of it like I said, it's its own thing too. It's not a perfectly juxtaposed story.
Okay. And then how well would you say it adapts the games? Does it follow it like beat beat, or does it take its own liberties with it?
It definitely takes its own liberties with it.
So, Dan, mind if I say a little something that you and I have discussed in the past?
Go for it, man.
So the anime, at least the first anime, is very heavily based off of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. And one of the important characters in that game is missing entirely. Dan, you know exactly who I'm referring to. Grant Dynasty.
Yeah.
They entirely removed him. Now, I will say I like the inclusion of Saint Germain, but I still think Grant should have been in there in some way, shape, or form.
He should have, and that was a director or writer issue. It was like the writer didn't like him or something. I mean, I didn't like that they left him out either, but the reality is if you're gonna leave one of those characters out, it would have to be Grant. It couldn't be Sypha.
Yeah.
It couldn't be Alucard. Couldn't certainly be Trevor.
Right.
Yeah. Out of those four, it's a case of out of those four, everyone's good, but someone had to come last place.
Yeah, I mean, if a character was to be left out, he'd be the one to do it because he contributed less to the story, despite being a really good character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, how many seasons is the anime? Let's see. Scroll up a little bit here. Angry Canadian said that there's at least 5 seasons if we're counting Nocturne as season 5.
Correct.
So is that correct? So it's 5 seasons?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's
and it's streaming on
Castlevania.
Netflix, right?
Yes, and it's so popular. If they remove it, they're done. Castlevania seasons 1 through 4, and Nocturne is its own series, but it's a continuation.
Okay.
So it's got its own season 1 through however many they do.
I gotcha.
And I think the animes came to be because we have not had a new Castlevania game since 2013, I think.
Yeah. Do we know if there's any plans to make another one?
There are not, as far as I know.
Which,
no name dropping, but there's, I mean, the series got basically, I don't want to say scrapped, but just kind of thrown away. I guess you could say, just be like, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to name drop anything, but
yeah, that seems honestly kind of tragic.
Let's just say a certain game flopped, and that spelled certain doom for the series.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Again, like Dan, not name dropping anything. Hey, Konami, if you're watching this, maybe give us a 3D collection. That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And you could have Castlevania 64, Lament of Innocence, and Curse of Darkness. That's 3 games. It's the only 3D ones other than Lords of Shadow.
Yeah, maybe release the Lords of Shadow collection while you're at it.
Yeah, I won't say that the Lords of Shadow collection wasn't good either, because it was. I didn't play the last one, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never got to it.
Well, guys, I think we covered quite a bit of ground here. Definitely a lot to digest with this one. So, for you guys, that anyone watching this that has never heard or has heard but never attempted a Castlevania game or never seen the anime, I hope this was definitely persuasive enough to get you to try it out. I certainly want to try it out for sure. But of course, backlog of games being what it is, I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah,
your backlog.
Your
backlog can't be. Your backlog is not as bad as mine. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's bad enough in its own right.
Yeah, it's among my top 4 favorite video game franchises. And for those who don't know, I'm 41. I've been gaming since I was 5 or 6. So a long effing time. I've had a lot of time to play games. One thing that we have to at least mention and give credit to, and you honestly can't mention Castlevania without mentioning the music.
Oh, okay.
The soundtracks. Some of the best soundtracks in the gaming industry, period. I don't care what anyone says.
On my Apple Music, there are 2 game franchises that have the most music. That being Persona and Castlevania.
Okay. Do me a favor, Trevor. Are you working tomorrow?
Yes, I am 8:30.
I'm also 8:30. I'm your entrance, I'm main body. Show me some of those tracks when you get the chance.
Will do.
Yeah, the music along with the gameplay will actually get you immersed, because I don't know what it is for me, but the music, it triggered something in me that it got my blood pumping and got me really into the game.
Okay.
And fun fact, people
I'm curious about something. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, you're cool. Fun fact, people actually really wanted Castlevania and Smash Bros. Just because of the music.
Really?
I'm dead serious.
Okay, so real quick, what I was looking into, it looks like there is Castlevania on the Switch, on PC, on Steam. So I found for $19.99 on Steam the Castlevania Anniversary Collection that includes Castlevania 2, 3, Dracula's Curse, Super for Castlevania 4, Castlevania the Adventure, Belmont's Revenge, Bloodlines, Kid Dracula, which has never been released in English before, and apparently something called History of Castlevania, Book of the Crescent Moon. So if you're in the market on it on PC and you want to play it that way, there you go.
Is the Advanced Collection on PC?
Yes, that is also $19.99, and that includes Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissidence, Aria of Sorrow, Dracula X, and I think that's it.
Now
there
the
should
real
be
question.
the Requiem collection too, which would be Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood.
I was actually about to ask
I don't
about
see that. I see a Lords of Shadow on here. But yeah, I don't see the Requiem collection.
Okay. That's weird because you would think people... that's another gripe of mine, how the Requiem collection is PlayStation exclusive. It's not coming to other systems. But I do know that Symphony of the Night was intended to be the game that, separated the franchise from Nintendo.
Right.
Oh, well, I guess I'm fine with it because I got it on my PS4. So.
I have it on my PS5, so all's well that ends well for me.
Right.
Exactly. All right, so guys, I think we're going to go ahead and end this for the night. So, of course, thank you, Trevor and Dan, for doing this with me. I'll definitely see you guys again. Well, Trevor, I'll see you at work tomorrow, but on stream, we'll be seeing each other again this coming Thursday when we do round 2 of our TDK item tournament that we started streaming last week. And of course, tomorrow for beginner series, we are having Ruby come on, another member of TDK. This will be his first time joining us ever on stream, and he is going to talk about, and I'm saying it correctly, Virginia, don't shoot me. We're going to be talking about Ruby, or as I like to call it, RWBY.
If you would have said that first time, I would have come through this phone and force-fed you the right way to say it. I don't even know how that works, but I would have done it.
Why would you
do the double thumbs down?
Yeah.
Wait, do I have to like hold it for long enough or something?
I think
it only works with the phone.
I think so too. Okay, I'm curious, Trevor. What happens if you do a middle finger?
Okay, let's see. Nothing, I guess.
I'll tell you what happens. Chris clips this.
You know what I say? You know what I say to that?
Oh, I can already see the shenanigans coming.
Oh, yes,
Chris, don't waste this opportunity.
Right.
If you're still watching, bud.
Oh, I'm sure he is, and if not, he's still.
I'm 99% sure he's still watching.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, guys, that's what's coming up. The stream with Kobe's coming up with Ruby on tomorrow. The stream with TDK doing the Smash tournament, that's Thursday, and then Friday will be our open panel stream, and that will be the topic of how our world's history affects our entertainment. And that'll be kind of a part 2 to last week's beginner series where I was talking world history with Nate and Phil. So definitely some fun conversations to be had. I am going to say this, though. Next week, I'm taking a week off from streaming with the exception of the Return of the King stream with Phil on Monday. So no beginner series next week. The stream tournament to be determined. No open panel next week. Next week is going to be a week of rest.
Yeah, you got a busy week, man.
Mm-hmm. I do. But anyways, though, we'll get to all of that when we get to it. So once again, thank you to Dan and Trevor for joining me on here. And for you guys that are watching, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will talk to you later. Oh, wait, wrong clip.
Are you serious right now? Are you serious right now?
Needed.
Bye.